This is Rebel Mom Boss, the podcast for scrappy, rebellious moms who are making things happen while raising their babies. My name is Robin Flynn, a scrappy, rebellious mom myself, and the founder and managing director of Robin Flynn Media. I'm also a mom to a beautiful toddler named Peyton. We do things a little bit differently here, so buckle up and welcome to the rebellion. We talk a lot about motherhood and entrepreneurship on this podcast, but one area that's actually kind of lacking is financial wellness. Times are tough no matter who you talk to, so what can you do to make sure that your finances are not just in order, but that you're actually setting yourself up for success and that you're setting your family up for success? Lin Sok is an award-winning financial advisor and a fellow scrappy mom, and she joins us now. Hi, Lin.
Hi, Robin.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So I've been lurking your social media, and it's very, very, very impressive. Go check her out, by the way, on Instagram at the Lin Sok. But I want to start by talking about you and your journey, because when you reached out to me, your story was kind of like captivating, to be honest. So you became a mom kind of young in life by today's standards anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I was, much to my parents' chagrin, I got pregnant at 18, had my first child at 19. We ended up getting married, and we had 4 children in total together. Wow. Then divorced when our youngest was 2 and became a single mom. So if that qualifies as me being scrappy, then I'll take that. I'll take that title.
Well, yeah, I know a lot of single moms, and they're honestly angels in my mind because, you know, I have a partner and I only have 1 child, and I find it still difficult to raise her. So I can't imagine doing it, you know, alone and having 4 children. Even in a co-parenting situation, you're still on your own when you're with your children, right? So that must have been really overwhelming.
It was, but I'll speak for a lot of other single moms who'll say the same thing. We don't really think about it because we have a mission. I mean, there's just no time to think about how overwhelming everything is. Obviously, we feel it. And to be honest, between me and you mentioned you only have 1 child. I think it's really difficult having a single child versus having like multiples. This is just, I've never had a single child, except for my first one. But I find that is difficult. And moms who only have 1 child don't get enough credit. It seems easy, but it's, with my 4 kids, they all, they're older now. So they all kind of take care of each other. And nobody's asking me to draw pictures with them or to play with them. They all kind of took care of each other growing up.
Yeah, that's true. Like I'm the oldest of 4 myself. So like my siblings and I, the basement was our zone, and we were always like playing Barbies or board games or making these elaborate scenarios on the couch and forts or whatever. But my daughter doesn't have any siblings, so she's always in the living room with me. And we are playing together. We are drawing, We're doing painting. She's helping me cook. Like there is no off moment. If she's awake, she's with me, basically.
Exactly.
Which, yeah, that's pretty tiring, I guess.
So
maybe we should have another, just so she has someone to play with. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back a little bit. You have 4 kids. You get divorced. Your life changes, obviously. Were you already a financial advisor at this point, or was this something that came later?
No, so I got into finance early on. I was in my early 20s. When I had my son at 19, I didn't really finish school. I was kind of scrapping around, what kind of job can you get when you don't really have much of an education? And I fell into the career. I was 22, 23, and right before my divorce was when I left the industry for reasons. I left the industry, and it wasn't until I met my now husband that I decided to come back. So it's been about 10 years. I've been an independent advisor for about 10 years. And it's really because of my current husband. It's funny, I left the industry because of my first husband, and then got back into it because of my second husband. So there's something to say about the person you share your life with.
100%. If you don't have a supportive partner, it's impossible to do anything. Like, I've been a guest on a few podcasts where they were like, oh my God, you started your own business as a mom with a toddler. Like, how did you manage to do that? And I'm like, because I had no other choice. I have a mortgage to pay. I got to put food on the table. Like, to me, that's the ultimate driver of success, is when you cannot fail.
Exactly.
And having a partner who supports that, who is like, yeah, do it, go for it. Like, that is a huge difference maker, I would say.
Yeah, 1,000%. And sometimes you're, hate to say it, but sometimes you're better off on your own. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Sometimes a bad partner can be more work than having no partner at all, right? Because it's one less person to clean up after if they're not pulling their weight.
Exactly.
I hear a lot about, married single moms, basically, people who are doing everything plus taking care of a husband who's not pulling his weight, which is really, really sad. I feel like that's definitely worse than being alone.
Exactly. And you see more and more of that nowadays.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about financial wellness, because this is something I'm really excited to chat about, because I grew up, I thought I was middle class growing up as the oldest of four, but as an adult looking back, I'm like, at the best, we were lower middle class. We never wanted for anything. We always had clean clothes. We always had food on the table, but there were never any extras. Things were very, very tight. I didn't have financial wellness or financial success modeled to me. So it's something that I have had to figure out for myself into adulthood. My parents worked incredibly hard, and they did an amazing job. Honestly, I don't want to put them down at all, but, having four kids is expensive, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
And, I use that word only a lot. I have one child, and I really want to set her up for success. And this is, this concept we hear a lot about of generational wealth building. I'm not just looking to be financially stable now. I'm looking to build financial stability for her when she enters adulthood, so that she's not, eating peanut butter out of a jar like I was when I was 21.
Yeah.
So how can you do that? I'm sure it's a complex topic, but what can you do to start building generational wealth?
Well, first of all, take what you read online with a grain of salt. So I've been in the financial services industry for a long time. Every financial advisor, every company, every webinar, every, convention promises to teach you generational wealth. For me, I find it's one of those hashtags, and it sells books. So let's just get rid of that for a second. What do you really want to do as a parent without using all these fancy hashtags? You want to leave behind a legacy, if that's what you want. But then defining what legacy is. So between my husband and I, my husband's 13 years older than me, and between the both of us for the last 3 years, because we're kind of in that age group, we've attended a lot of funerals. And not just funerals for people who are older. When you think of people passing away, you think of people in their 80s and their 90s. They're older, they had good lives, and they pass away. We've attended a lot of funerals for people in their 40s and 50s. And that's rough. So something that, beyond what I do for a living and talking about passing on wealth to the next generation, is how do you want to be remembered? And let's just call it what it is. When a young person passes away, someone who still has so much life to give, everybody's sad and everybody's mourning, and he was so young, she was so young. But then life goes on, except for the people who are truly close and intimate with that person. That's what really happens. So this talk about legacy leaving, it only lasts for a short period of time. I mean, we live in a time where everything's so fast paced. We forget so easily. I mean, do we remember what was on the news 2 weeks ago? No, we don't. Everything goes by quickly. And what I try to teach, I run a community called Women and Money Montreal, where I teach financial literacy. I try to keep it as layman, as simple as possible. And we talk about all kinds of things. But we also talk about legacy leaving and passing on wealth, and why it's so important. It's not just about getting the life insurance and passing on to the next generation. It's being able to leave behind a legacy in your family for generations, and not just for the few weeks after you pass away or for the 6 months after you pass away. It's the example that I give is someone like Henry Ford. Henry Ford is the founder of Ford Motor Company. We all know what Ford is. And how he started his legacy is he was supposed to be a farmer. And he told his father, no, I am not going to be a farmer. And then he kind of tinkered with a bunch of things, started the Ford Motor Company to what it is today. You know, many, many, many generations later, it's still around. He has left a legacy, but he built his business on the backs of slaves. You know, he did it that even though he built this mega financial legacy, he didn't do it, you know, with a good heart. He did it, you know, that's a whole other show. So for me, it's important to leave behind a legacy for generations to come. I want my great, 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 great grandkids to still remember me, because when they go to the hospital, they see a wing named after me. I want to be able to do good in the world with wealth, and that's what it is. And we don't talk about that enough. It's not just about leaving behind whatever to your kids. It's how are you going to set your family up for forever, so your family doesn't have to worry about money anymore.
I love that you brought up the sort of doing good element of it, because, you know, with my business model, I can only take on so many clients at a time, right? Because you only have so much time. And so I have a wait list right now. I'm at max capacity. And there's some higher business executive folks I was speaking with who were like, well, why don't you just hire people and then you can take on more clients, or you could outsource some of the work. And I'm like, because that's not what I want. I ultimately started this business so that I could quit my old job and spend more time with my daughters. So I am working as much as I want to. I'll raise my rates, you know, that kind of thing. But part of my legacy, what I want to leave to my daughter, is the memories of having a present mother. You know, I don't want to be working 60, 80 hours a week and she never sees me. I want her to know mom works hard. Women can start their own businesses, but mom was also there when I scratched my knee. Mom brought me to the park. Mom was at my school play. And I think that's something that we forget about when we're building that generational wealth, is building those memories for our family. Yeah,
absolutely. My kids, I've always been at home. My kids have never been in an after school program or in a day camp. I was always home for them. It was hard. I mean, you know, like, you grew up in a family of four, so it's not as if it was unicorns and rainbows, but I did it because I always wanted to be present for them. I didn't care if I had to work at night, early mornings. You know, eventually kids grow up. My kids are older now, so I don't have to wake up and get them ready to go to school. But that was the decision that I made. You know, when we talk about generational wealth, it's what do you want to leave behind? You know, what I want to leave behind may not be what you want. And same thing with you. Like, for my financial services business, I do have a team, but I only want to grow it so much. This was never going to be the multi-million-dollar idea, but it was going to put food on the table, pay the bills, allow for extras, and build a good financial cushion. I actually founded a tech company, and for me, that's the multi-million-dollar idea, but completely separate from financial services.
Wow, interesting. I find also a lot of the financial advice, and this was something I was really frustrated with when I was, you know, in my early 20s. And, you know, I went into working in radio originally, which is not a very lucrative avenue for working in. Journalism in general doesn't pay very well. But I was passionate about it, and I didn't mind not being, you know, wealthy. But I was very frustrated because, you know, I was working full time. I had a side hustle. I had rent. I didn't have money for down payments. I couldn't afford to purchase a property. And I just felt like all the financial advice out there was not for me. It felt like all the financial advice was geared towards people who already had money to spend. I'm like, if I had money to spend, I wouldn't need your help telling me what to do with it. You know, that was sort of what I thought at the time. And I wonder if that's something, I wonder why you think that is, you know, why there's just not a lot of information for people who are struggling about how to pull themselves out of that hole. I feel like it's always like, get a side hustle. It's like, well, I already work 60 hours a week. What more do you want from me?
Well, there's no money in it. So I'd like to be really brutally honest. Why don't banks, why don't financial advisors help those who actually need the advice? There's no money in it for them. For a bank to satisfy their shareholders, they need to make a profit, and that's what it is. So that, for me, that's why, look, I can't save the world. I'm just one person. But why do I host the Women in Money Montreal Zoom sessions? It's because within that community, every week there's usually about 50 women who register every week. But it's not just women who don't have money. It's a combination of everybody. And it's understanding that whether you make 20,000 a year or you make 200,000 a year, there's no difference between either one of you when it comes to financial literacy. Just because you earn $200,000 a year doesn't mean you know what to do with your money. Some of my favorite clients are my yoga instructors who are very granola. They make their $30,000-$40,000 a year, zero debt. They grow all their vegetables on their little condo balcony in Griffintown. You know what I mean? They live very, very simply and happy, and they have retirement savings, and they're extremely comfortable. They could afford anything that they want in life. And then you have on the other spectrum, people who earn 250, 300,000 who are, in so much debt, they're crying. Their money is spent before they even get it. So it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with the money you do have. And, and you're right, like financial advice out there is if you're not making it, get a side hustle. Well, there's only so many hours in a week. Let's talk about the money you can earn. Sometimes it's just as simple as if you have a 9 to 5, maybe you're not earning enough in the 9 to 5 you're in. Maybe just going somewhere else will earn you 20% more. And I've seen it happen, but sometimes there's those limiting beliefs that, I'm comfortable here. I've been at this job for 10 years. I know I can make more somewhere else, but you don't know if the grass is greener. You don't know if you'll get the job. I don't want to apply because I'm scared of rejection.
And you don't know unless you try. It's definitely a no if you don't apply for that other job. But at least you have a chance if you apply for it. And that was, I'm so lucky I worked in radio for so long because, when you're trying to book guests for interviews on the radio station, sure, the odds of Barack Obama agreeing to appear on your station are slim to none, but it's definitely none if you don't ask. At least there's a chance.
Exactly.
So, I used to request guests all the time that we had no chance of getting. But you know what? Sometimes we did get them. So, maybe even if it was 1 in 100 times we actually got the person, better than nothing. I think that's something that, like, moms in particular, we undervalue our skill sets. Whereas I think moms are excellent at managing a household. They're super organized. They're good at meeting deadlines. They're patient. Like, there are so many transferable skills that go from motherhood into a workplace. But moms don't think that. We think that, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And we do put that limiting belief on ourselves.
Oh, 1,000%. I did an article recently in the Globe and Mail, and we were just talking about that. Like, why is it okay for us to multitask like crazy for stuff that we're not paid for? And we do it pretty well. But when it comes to getting paid for that same type of work in a role somewhere in the corporate environment or even in the business world, we're like, I'm not sure if I could do it. Where does that come from? Why is that okay? No, go get paid. Go out there and get paid. You do it. You have to go in with confidence. And like you said, if you don't apply, you have 100% chance of not getting the job.
Yep. Somebody told me recently when I was trying to, decide whether or not to increase my rates, they said you should be charging the highest amount you can charge without laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's scary because there are the people who are going to laugh at you and be like, that is way too much money. And now I just tell myself, well, they're not my client.
That's it.
There's somebody else who would love to pay me that amount of money.
Exactly.
And there always is. There always is someone who's willing to pay it.
Exactly. Look, think of every subscription that we have. You as a business owner, I'm sure you're signed up to even, what we're recording this podcast on. You pay a subscription for it. Whenever they send you the yearly notices, hey, we're increasing our fees, you might make a face, but you're paying for it. You'll pay for it. And you're not, unless it's an exorbitant amount of money, like a 50% increase, you're going to pay it.
Yep. And everything went up this year.
Oh, yeah.
And everything is a subscription model. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I feel like even 15 years ago, I could just purchase software and then I owned that software. Now everything is a subscription model, which, is great from a business standpoint for the businesses that are charging you because they get this recurring income.
Yeah.
Not so good for us who have to pay for things over and over and over. I'm sure most people don't even realize what half the subscriptions are that they're signed up for because they come out on all different cards, different accounts, different times of the month. When you add it up, like I'm very intense about my budget because being a self-employed person, you need to be. You don't want to get audited.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very careful about everything. My gosh, I was stunned at the amount of subscriptions I was paying for that I really wasn't using.
Yeah, exactly. Because everything is everywhere. You have 3 different cards, you have 10 different subscriptions, you sign up for the free trial, you forget to cancel it. It always happens. So we have to be mindful of that.
Yes, but that happened to me with LinkedIn. I signed up for the free trial, and LinkedIn Premium
It's expensive.
is not cheap.
Yeah, I pay for it now because of the tech side, because of the tech company. So it was advised as kind of like a marketing tool, but it's not a $10 a month subscription. So when that accidentally comes out of your bank account because you forgot to cancel it, it could hit.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your advice for a woman? Let's say she's listening right now and she's like, I have this great idea for a business and I want to start this business, but I don't have any money to start this business. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. From a financial standpoint, do you think it's worth it to take that risk and to start your own business?
I think it's worth it to take a look at it. So a lot of times, especially this is usually a question asked by someone who doesn't have a business background, because those of us from a business background, we're right away like, okay, what are the numbers? If you don't have a business background, actually look at the potential numbers. We have access to so many tools now where we could get a printout of everything. So whatever business it is that you're thinking of doing, you're probably not reinventing the wheel, even if you think it's super innovative. There's probably something out there that exists like it. Plug it into ChatGPT and say, I want to start a X business. What are the financial considerations? How much is this going to cost? And have that conversation, have that convo with ChatGPT, and it will literally spit out, how much it's going to cost, what tools that you could use in order to start it. You have a podcast. What if I wanted to start a podcast? I remember a few years ago I wanted to start one. I don't remember anymore how much it costs. I see it online a lot. Everybody wants to start a podcast. It's become the new thing again, but it's time, energy, money, right? I mean, you know this. So if you want to start a podcast, literally ChatGPT it. What do I need to start? And see what the initial investment is. In business, in the business world, you want to invest as little as possible for the highest return. You know what your budget is, so try to find the balance between the two. Stop, quote unquote, investing into tools for your business that aren't really investments. Back in the day, we didn't have these tools. So, as a financial advisor, what did we do? We door knocked, we cold called. Those are tools, not the funnest things, but those were tools, those were ways that we grew our client base for free. Nowadays, social media is free. I don't have to buy a billboard anymore. I don't have to buy ad space on, Channel 12 where they used to have those ads. Every city has one of those channels where there are ongoing real estate ads. So there's so many ways to start a business with very little capital. Look it up. Use the tools. Stop looking up recipes and look up how much it's going to cost to start your business.
Yep. My advice would be it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to quit your job and start a business full time and go all in. You can start small and build from there and then eventually quit your job kind of thing. Would be my advice.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the roadmap that I took, was starting small and building. If you're on maternity leave, that's a good time to do it because you have a little bit of a safety net, right? You're still getting paid by the government. Thank you.
and you have a deadline. So if your plan is to not return, and when your mat leave ends, you should be planning out your business plan to coincide with your return to mat leave, and let that be your motivation to get your business up and running.
I love that. You can follow Lin Sok on Instagram at the Lin Sok. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Robin.
If you like what you heard today, make sure you follow and subscribe to Rebel Mom Boss with Robin Flynn wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and make sure to leave a review because that's how other moms will find the podcast too. Until next week.